When it comes to the online spaces with tons of media takes and such, especially with the indie productions, it's not out of the realm of possibility that people will build their own personal thoughts and interpretations of the characters in said media. Some fun, some bad, and some that are just plain out there. So with the amazing Digital Circus getting its second episode out not too long ago, there was a bit of a hubbub where people took issue with Jax as a character. You know, the character that is pretty much the embodiment of a Tumblr sexy man, who was, by design, made to be a prick! And in the latest episode, the character was shown to be a lot more manipulative, a lot more aggressive, and was willing to lead a huge fudge monster to kill off an entire kingdom of NPCs. Which apparently some people didn't like how much of a monster he had become. Now, while I may not have a life per se, I've got projects and I haven't really seen that many people complaining about Jax on Twitter. This could be because it's been buried by people defending the character, and in some of the weirdest ways as well, even proclaiming that Jax was a morally gray character, which to be frank is kind of a dumb defense. Trust me guys, when you've been in the online space for as long as I have, you tend to see some of the dumbest takes online of all time. Jax isn't what you would call a villain character per se, but from my perspective, the guy is a straight up dick who's apparently trying to get as much fun out of the situation that he can. Hell, even the creator Gooseworks jokes around with Jax's behavior, and had to come out to say that Jax was not rewritten between the first episode and the second. Now, I'm not going to try to interpret Gooseworks' words, trying to find a deeper meaning. This video isn't about that. If it was, then I might as well just end it here because I find that to be extremely boring. No, what I want to talk about is characters like Jax. I want to start off by saying that if you dislike the character for his actions, or if you like him, that's perfectly fine either way. Perceptions of a character are not going to be one for everyone. A character who has this innocent charm to him, but another person may find the same character be annoying. And here on the MangaKamen channel, we talk about how there are characters who, while being designed to be unliked, tend to do their job a bit too well.
Jesus, I shot myself!
So if someone doesn't like Jax as a character, that's perfectly fine. Personally speaking, while I don't hate the character myself, jackass characters whose only traits that I see them being a jackass, even inflated for comedic effect, do not make me instantly like them.
Get driving.
And while part of the reason I'm not actually ripping into Jax's character writing, which is what Gooseworks said would be the point of the show, the characters, someone told me that it's been confirmed that there are only going to be about 8 episodes from this series, but I'm not going to go deep diving into Twitter more than I have to. I have some level of sanity left. And while there was a bit of a flash of a different character trait of Jax other than an asshole during the whole funeral scene, I'm sorry, but that's not enough for me to think that he's more than just an asshole. Is it a hint of him being deeper? Yeah, but until we actually see that depth, that's all it is. A hint. Am I saying that Jax is 100% an asshole? No, and that's because we only have 2 episodes of this series. So I can't in good conscience say he's got the depth of an ocean or a puddle until we get more content pertaining to the character. Is he irredeemable?
I don't know.
Now, if that was all I wanted to say in this video, we'd be done, but the astute of you have realized there's a lot more to this video by looking at the time codes. So sit down, buckle up, and get ready for shame theory, because we got something else to say here. I mentioned earlier that there were defenses for the character that I thought were weak, one of them being the morally gray character defense, which it doesn't really apply to Jax. Again, this is due to the fact we don't really know much about Jax as a character, but we're only shown his more jackassery side. I even saw this comparison to another character from Hell of a Boss.
The first time was with a character called Stella. In previous episodes, Stella was clearly set up as a morally dubious character who hated her husband and showed little regard for her daughter. In later episodes, we got to see Stella's evil character on full display. Fans had a complete meltdown over this, accusing the showrunner Vivziepop of retconning the character and accusing her of hating women. This just made no sense, because Stella was always an evil character.
Well, I'm certainly not going back to my former commentator days, donning my skull hat and fedora again. This kind of defense or point being made ignores context. In the case of Jax, it's a lack of seeing more of a human side to him that would give the ability to be considered morally gray. And for Stella here, the creator leaves out the fact that the first season of Hell of a Boss was written that Stolas had cheated on Stella. There was some justification that could be made for Stella's behavior. That spurned spouse who was cheated on, it could be there. There is potential for characterization for that. However, I want to point out that using that as a sign to assign tributes to the creator isn't really all that strong, and it's kind of a dumb move to do. Now, as a longtime critic of Hell of a Boss and such, I personally thought that the writing choices for Stella were extremely weak, and even more so considering that the show really liked to focus on Stolas and giving him excuses or justifications for a number of his choices in the writing. However, this isn't a video talking about that. I've got other videos where I go more in depth about this with Hell of a Boss, but my point is that morally gray / ambiguous characters can be fun, but using that as a defense for a jackass character doesn't always work. Then there's the side that apparently if you like a character who does bad things, or if you write that character, that speaks to you as a person.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Listen, this has been a topic that's been floating around the web for ages, and one where even I have been accused of, and I've been wanting to make a video about this subject for a long time, so let's get this out of the way, okay? Just because you write a terrible character, or if you like a terrible character, that does not mean that said character represents you as a person, mainly because it's fiction. Oftentimes we'll see people claim that fiction is a reflection of real life, and that can have an impact on people. I'm not going to claim that fiction can't change a person's thought process. Hell, I'm making a video right now where I talk about that sort of thing. If it did, just imagine all the Yoshikage Kira fans who secretly get off to the Mona Lisa's hands, or people who, like Senator Armstrong, want to remove kids' brains with an ice cream scoop to help save America. There's nothing wrong with liking a character who does terrible things, who's a villain, who's a jackass. The only time it's a problem if you start emulating the behavior of the characters in real life. Which, unless you somehow gain a stand that can make people blow up and the government suddenly decide to let its secret nanomachine technology be available to the public, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. Maybe. I hope. Nowadays, especially on the internet, there's this concept called bleed. It's a term that has a lot more hold in Dungeons & Dragons, where a person will often mix their own personality of the character that they're role-playing. And the term seems to be applicable to what people believe whenever a person likes a character or does something bad or writes a villain. From my experience, I've seen that this kind of mentality is prominent, and would explain why a lot of villains in modern day are portrayed with a more positive light, or are misunderstood, or have a very, very sad backstory. While I don't fully believe this to be the case for a character like Jax, remember this video was about the character who is much more of a demented Bugs Bunny, I can see people making this case about said character. In the first episode, a lot of people saw Jax being a jerk.
Oh no, they killed Zooble. Anyway, you guys wanna go get something to eat? Ladies first. No, wait, why would I say that?
I guess when there's a lot more characterization for the second episode, an episode that I must remind you had its script locked up before the first episode dropped, that he had changed to become a lot more demented. He really didn't. While there are people who will get interpretations of characters, especially characters who have limited screen time in indie productions with months of content drought, it's not unheard of for people to create images of characters in their head. It's something that a lot of fans will do. Hell, I've done it a few times back in the day before the crippling depression of our limited existence came crashing down on me and I decided to burn my fanfiction account. I had one of those, don't look it up. So I can't blame them for that. However, the issue will be that when the interpretation will eventually be broken. If you get close, your interpretation of a character will not be 100% accurate, whether because you filled in some gaps or because you have a headcanon about the character. When they legitimately show traits that don't fit exactly to your headcanon, it will break that image in your head. Now, you don't have to like the direction that Jax's character is taking. That is completely valid. To me, while he is entertaining, it's not enough for me to personally like the character, and that's fine. You can even express that disappointment in healthy ways. Trust me, I've had my own disappointments with characters from current indie shows that I've expressed issues with as well. Some may say not healthy, but hey, whatever. But if you try to proclaim your headcanon is the truth, or if you try to paint others who like the actual direction of the character as bad people, then you're doing it wrong. I've noticed that if you disagree with someone's fan interpretation, or if you happen to like a certain kind of design, then it's designated as bad. It really feels like tribalism going on now, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all, especially since it's all over media and social media. If you don't have the quote-unquote correct take, you're labeled as a bad person. Par for the course nowadays, I guess. I think it should be known that I obviously hate this sort of mentality, and trust me, there are people who unironically do this sort of thing. I recently made a video talking about media literacy and the lack of it, where I brought up that just because I'd like Senator Armstrong as a boss and character, that I think he was actually right in the game. This guy right here.
Damn much!
Do you think I go around kicking cybernetic dogs? Do you people think that people who like Jax are just as demented as him? You certainly don't have to like the character. You don't have to like the direction the show is taking him. And most of all, you can disagree with people about his characterization. But you also need to admit that just because the character doesn't fit your narrowed interpretation of what the character was you thought he would be, that doesn't mean he was rewritten, that doesn't mean that people who like him are monsters, and it doesn't mean that others can't enjoy the show because of it. Then again, what do I know? I'm just a schmuck on the internet. I'm MangaKamen, and